even within yourself, there's an internal conflict daily because it's so countercultural. What we do is countercultural. When you create, you're quieting the noise. I mean, that in and of itself is just the most difficult thing to do. You're trying to find your voice.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Quest For Zest. I'm Clark Underwood, and per usual, I'm here in Austin, Texas. Today, I'm headed to the studio of Jessy Wilson-McFarlin. She's making like minimal sculptures on canvas. Really interesting. Can't wait to meet her, see where she's working and how she's working on it. Jessy.
What's up?
Found you. So good to meet you. I'm already seeing your work in here.
Yes, I have little miniature pieces right here.
Brilliant.
Welcome to Broad Shop.
Broad Shop. All right.
Yes.
What is this space you're working in?
So this is just the front of the studio that is designated for selling local artists' work, crafts, jewelry, everything from artists within 100-mile radius.
100 miles. So that's okay.
Miles. Cool. All local, all handmade.
Well, you're a lot closer than 100 miles.
Yeah. I'm just a few steps away.
All right, cool. Show me where you're working. Yeah.
So, welcome to my little spot.
Jessy, the scale.
Yeah. I love working on large scale pieces.
This is large.
Yeah.
I gotta get a closer look. Looks awesome. Yeah, I love the texture on these. You know, I've seen them online, but seeing them in person is just like much more captivating.
A lot of people say that.
What drove you into this like sculpture / painting / canvas? Like it's definitely, you know, form making.
Yes.
But you're keeping it on a canvas. Like what drew you to that format?
Well, honestly, it was just a labor of love, sort of like experimenting, coming from the need to create and the need to experiment. I'm a musician first, and during COVID, we were very limited in terms of, you know, performing and being in front of people and live music and that sort of thing. And I found myself sort of feeling very creatively confined and stagnant, and even feeling really low because, you know, I wasn't expressing myself as much as I was used to. So at that same time, my husband and I, it's a kind of a crazy story. We gave up our apartment in Nashville. So we bought an RV. My husband decided that we should come to Austin just to give it a shot. When we got here, we got a little spot at this cool place called Pecan Grove. It's a 100-year-old RV park here in the middle of Barton Springs.
I don't think I knew RVs were 100 years old. I guess one could assume.
It is. It's 100 years old. RV life was not for us. And so we got a new place, and I wanted to sort of design in a way that felt very airy, neutral, elemental, some of the vibes that I was picking up on in Austin.
Okay. Oh, now that you mention it, these are very limestone-y, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay.
I got some plaster, I got some canvases, I got some paint, and I started experimenting. And I don't know, it was just that relationship that I have with the muse that allowed me to keep pushing my limits. And within about 4 months, I landed on this style. I'll never forget the moment that it happened. I was working with some fabric and some paint, and I literally took the fabric on the canvas and like pushed it up, and it looked like blinds. And I was like, ooh, what's this?
That's doing something.
Yeah. And I knew that I was really passionate about this work when I went on vacation. Shortly after I just went bloop with that piece, I went on vacation, but the whole time I was away, all I could think about was that piece and what I was gonna do to it when I got home.
Well, coming from a music background, when you were doing those experiments, did that feel intuitive, like the same way of discovering, a riff or a song or whatever that may be? Or did it feel like a whole new process?
No, it actually felt very much the same. And I would even say a little bit closer and more personal, because when you make music, you collaborate along the way to get to the finished product. So you have to introduce whatever you're working on to someone, whether it be you want some musicians to come into the studio to play on the song that you wrote, or the engineer has to tweak some things. You have to take your hands off of it. With these pieces, for the first time in my life, I realized what it felt like to create something from the very beginning all the way until the end with only my hands on it. And that reconnected me in a way, and still reconnects me and grounds me in a way that gives me such a singular voice to communicate with the process and my creativity and the muse, and I really appreciate that. And it's just, I feel like they serve each other in such a beautiful way. A really cool real estate development company, they reached out to me and they wanted me to do sort of like a replica of like a small 8-inch piece that I had on my Instagram page, and they wanted it 8 feet. And they're like, "Can you do that?" And I'm like, yeah. Didn't know. I've done that like a gazillion times. Well, at that same time, we discovered that we were pregnant, my husband and I was really excited to work on this huge scale piece, but I knew that it was going to be very physical, and the pregnancy wasn't the easiest. So I had to sort of take my time, but between the time that I started it and the time that I finished it, we actually lost our baby. So if you look at the piece, like right here, the piece started right here. And you can sort of like feel the tension. And I laid the beginning of this piece down, still carrying our child. But then by the time I got out into the outer edges, we lost our baby. And I didn't do that intentionally, create this sort of it almost feels like a wound in a sense. And we named the piece Willing because that's what we named our son. So that's the name of this piece. And it's really special to me because it marks the time that, his existence, which is very real. And also it marks the moment when I felt like I could truly take this visual art seriously, which at that point, it was sort of like just an idea, sort of like a hobby. And that was really the shift for me to just pour more of myself into it.
The power of expression, and you were expressing yourself and it's coming through.
It's wild. Art is just the most powerful force in the universe, I believe. I do. It can make you love. It can make you cry. It can motivate you. I start doing things and listening to Kendrick Lamar. I feel like I can take over the world. I start listening to Nina Simone and I'm feeling all emotional. It's a beautiful thing. My advice would be to just make your art. And I talk to myself in that way because it's not easy.
Yeah, no, that
takes a lot.
That felt good to hear. Keep talking.
It takes so much courage to be an artist. People don't realize it. We are soldiers. We are soldiers. You have to go to bat for what you feel. Even within yourself, there's an internal conflict daily because it's so countercultural. What we do is countercultural. You're saying, when you create, you're quieting the noise. I mean, that in and of itself is just the most difficult thing to do in our society right now. You're quieting the noise and you're trying to find your voice. And that's really courageous, and it's vulnerable, and it's not easy.
Oh. Well, I appreciate you saying that and being vulnerable with me, and especially about your artwork and sharing it all.
Thanks for coming.
Man, it's beautiful to hear, beautiful to see, and I just super appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Well, I had a great time at Jessy's studio, seeing her artwork, seeing her space, and hearing her story about how she's come from music to visual art and how all her creativity spirals to express all of her emotion. And it's just been beautiful to hear, and I'm excited to share it with y'all. So I'll catch you next time in the Quest for Zest.